Welcome to the debate. When you look at an NFL roster, the temptation is to view it as a jigsaw puzzle, right? You just find the pieces that fit, snap them together, and suddenly you have this complete, perfect picture.
Right, a perfectly solved puzzle.
Exactly. But in reality, under the intense pressures of a hard salary cap and, well, the inevitable attrition of a professional football season, building a roster is much more like architectural engineering in an earthquake zone.
Yeah, that's a very apt comparison.
You're constantly forced to choose which load-bearing walls to reinforce with expensive steel and, which structural vulnerabilities you simply have to hope the building will tolerate.
That is the perfect analogy, because the stakes of those architectural choices, they just couldn't be higher for the 2026 Minnesota Vikings. They are navigating a critical roster-building crossroads right now under their new general manager, Nolan Teasley.
Absolutely.
You can practically feel the tectonic plates shifting under this franchise.
Precisely. So today, we are exploring a fundamental tension in modern roster management raised by recent sports analysis of the Viking situation. Specifically, we are examining a core dilemma.
Right, the big question.
Yeah. Should a franchise commit massive financial resources to consolidate elite, top-tier offensive talent, or must they maximize trade capital by moving highly valued assets to rebuild, frankly, severely depleted defensive depth?
Which is no small task.
Must double down on offensive consolidation. In today's NFL, retaining a player like wide receiver Jordan Addison is not a luxury. It is a strategic imperative.
A strategic imperative? Okay.
Yes. Keeping him supports the highly specialized, incredibly delicate quarterback ecosystem that Kevin O'Connell is trying to build.
Well, I look at this exact same roster and see a defense that is showing critical structural failure. I approach this from the perspective of asset maximization.
Okay, so sell the assets.
Exactly. My position is that keeping an asset as inherently valuable as Addison, when your defense is facing a five-alarm crisis, is just an unaffordable extravagance.
Unaffordable?
Yes, unaffordable. To achieve true roster balance and sustainable success, Nolan Teasley has to trade Addison for premium draft capital to fix this defense before it collapses entirely.
Okay, well, let's lay the groundwork for why consolidating this offensive talent is the right move. The Vikings possess a unique and, I would argue, largely irreplaceable advantage right now.
Having two WR1s?
Right. They have two genuine, unquestioned WR1s on the exact same roster in Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Now, retaining Addison requires a projected 3-year, $82.5 million extension with $34 million fully guaranteed.
Which is a massive number.
I understand that is a massive number on its face, but we have to look at the mechanisms of how the Vikings operate financially. They employ Rob Brzezinski, who is widely considered one of the premier salary cap executives in the league.
He's definitely a wizard at that.
He is. Brzezinski utilizes specific contract structures, pushing base salaries down to the league minimum in year one, heavily utilizing prorated signing bonuses and adding void years. All of this makes it a viable investment in the short term.
I'll grant you that Rob Brzezinski is a wizard at manipulating the immediate cap hit. He is fantastic at pushing the financial paying down the road, but I come at this from a macro-level view of positional scarcity.
Okay.
You call having two WR1s a strategic imperative? I call it an egregious misallocation of finite resources.
Egregious? That's a strong word.
I mean it, though. If we analyze the wide receiver landscape objectively, Jordan Addison would unequivocally be the primary focal point, the undisputed WR1 on at least a third of the teams in the NFL right now.
Sure. I won't disagree with that.
Right, so we are talking about the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Chargers. These are teams whose championship windows are open, but who are desperate for perimeter separation.
But that desperation is exactly why you keep him. Why give your competitors the very weapon they lack?
Because your defense is currently in a state of absolute crisis, and you have to finance a rebuild somehow.
I wouldn't call it an absolute crisis.
Defensive coordinator Brian Flores has the unenviable task of replacing 4 starters this season. He is currently relying on interior defensive linemen to fill outside edge rusher roles.
Well, Flores is creative, we know that.
He has to be. You simply cannot win a championship with a fatally flawed defense, no matter how clever Rob Brzezinski's accounting is. Teasley must capitalize on Addison's soaring market value to balance this roster.
Even if it means losing that offensive firepower?
Yes. If a player is viewed by the rest of the league and by opposing defensive coordinators as a WR1, then keeping him on your roster as a WR2 is a failure of resource allocation. You are paying a premium for a redundancy.
I firmly reject the premise that Jordan Addison is a redundancy.
How is he not? Because that assumes wide receivers only add value when they catch the ball. Trading Jordan Addison to fix defensive depth is like selling the engine of a high-performance sports car to buy better tires.
Okay.
You might stay on the road a little bit longer, you might survive a few more potholes, but you fundamentally lost your ability to win the race.
I appreciate the sports car analogy, but let's look at the actual accounting of your engine. Even with Brzezinski's cap manipulation, the bill always comes due.
Eventually, yes. When you factor in the base salaries, the prorated signing bonuses, the per-game roster bonuses, and the workout bonuses, the total cap hit over the life of this proposed extension is $104.8 million.
That's the going rate for elite talent.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that $104.8 million total cap allocation is justifiable for a second receiving option.
It is absolutely justifiable when you understand the mechanics of what that money actually buys on the field.
And what does it buy?
It buys what we call geometric stress.
Explain that, because $104 million is a lot of stress on a salary cap.
Geometric stress refers to how an offense physically forces a defense to align its personnel. If you only have one elite receiver, a defense can roll a safety over the top.
Right, bracket him in cover 2. It is absolutely justifiable when you understand the mechanics of what that money actually buys on the field.
And what does it buy?
It buys what we call geometric stress,
Explain that.
because $104 million is a lot of stress on a salary cap.
Geometric stress refers to how an offense physically forces a defense to align its personnel. If you only have one elite receiver, a defense can roll a safety over the top.
Right, bracket him in cover 2.
Exactly. They bracket him in cover 2 and play aggressive single coverage everywhere else. They can stack the box against your run game, but when you have two W1s, the math changes entirely.
It changes, but
You cannot consistently double-team both players. If the defense tries to play two high safeties to cap both Jefferson and Addison, the middle of the field is completely emptied out.
sure, it creates mismatches.
It forces the defense into impossible choices on every single snap. So the $104.8 million isn't just paying for Jordan Addison's receiving yards, it is paying for the geometric stress that dictates the terms of engagement before the ball is even snapped.
But dictating terms of engagement geometrically doesn't matter one bit if your own quarterback doesn't have time to throw the ball. Or, frankly, if your defense is giving up 30 points a game.
The offense can score 35.
The salary cap is ultimately a zero-sum game. Every dollar of that $104.8 million that goes into an already elite receiver room is a dollar extracted from your edge rush, from your defensive interior, from your linebackers.
You say that money is extracted, but you're missing what that immense financial investment is protecting. It's not just buying a receiver.
What is it buying then?
It is buying a highly specialized security blanket for Kyler Murray. We have to look at the fragility of the Vikings quarterback room right now.
See, this is exactly where the philosophy starts to show its cracks.
Hear me out. Look at Kevin O'Connell's public comments and the reality of the situation. The J.J. McCarthy experiment has been fraught.
Yes, it has.
He has struggled. He has dealt with injuries. And the franchise is now forced into pivoting toward Kyler Murray as a veteran reclamation project. For this to work, Murray needs an absolutely flawless infrastructure.
I understand O'Connell's history with reclamation projects, but let's interrogate the logic here.
The logic is based on cognitive offloading. During Kyler Murray's time in Arizona, he was traumatized by poor offensive lines and lackluster receiver separation.
He definitely ran around a lot.
Right. When plays broke down, his mechanics would completely unravel, and he'd rely solely on frantic scrambling. O'Connell's system is built on rhythm and timing.
Which requires processing.
Exactly. And when you have two receivers like Jefferson and Addison who can instantly beat man press coverage off the line of scrimmage in under 1.5 seconds, the quarterback's processing time drops significantly.
I see what you're saying.
Murray doesn't have to scan to his third or fourth read while the pocket collapses. His primary reads are consistently open. It resets his internal clock.
Okay, like what they did with Darnold.
That is exactly what happened with Sam Darnold. Darnold wasn't magically a different human being when he came to Minnesota and won 14 games. He was placed in an ecosystem that did the heavy cognitive lifting for him.
That is a compelling explanation of O'Connell's scheme. But have you considered the inherent contradiction in building a roster this way?
What contradiction? I don't see one.
The definition of a franchise quarterback. If Kyler Murray is truly a former #1 overall pick, a veteran who merely needs a change of scenery to thrive, he should inherently elevate the talent around him.
Not every quarterback can do that single-handedly.
But that is what franchise quarterbacks do. I push back aggressively on this philosophy that a quarterback requires two elite, top-of-the-market WR1s simply to be functional.
It's not about just being functional. It's about optimizing.
But if your quarterback requires $104.8 million of wide receiver insurance to process the field without panicking, is he really the solution? Or are you just designing a highly expensive system to mask his inherent deficiencies?
I see why you frame it as masking deficiencies, but I would argue it's about maximizing probability. Every quarterback, even the elite ones, benefits from optimized conditions.
Sure, they benefit, but at what cost?
Why make the hardest position in professional sports artificially harder? Just to prove a point about elevating talent.
Expensive system to mask inherent deficiencies at quarterback while completely ignoring the massive deficiencies being masked on defense right now. This brings us directly to the other side of the ball.
If we must.
We must. You talked about the cognitive stress on Kyler Murray. Let's talk about the physical stress on defensive coordinator Brian Flores.
Well, the defense was highly effective last year under Flores.
Last year's not this year. Let's look at the specific evidence from the sports analysis we're drawing from. Brian Flores is replacing 4 starters.
Which is typical NFL turnover.
It's a massive turnover in a highly complex scheme that requires absolute precision. But more pressingly, look at his edge rusher rotation. Right now, Flores is forced to rely on Tyrion Ingram Dawkins as his top rotational edge piece behind Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel.
Ingram Dawkins was highlighted by many analysts as a fascinating emerging player, actually. He has undeniable power.
He has power, yes, but he is structurally miscast on the edge, and the mechanics of the position prove it. Listeners need to understand what a 5-tech actually is.
Go ahead.
Ingram Dawkins was a 5th-round pick out of Georgia. At 290 pounds, his body type is built to be a 5-technique defensive end, meaning he lines up directly across from or on the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle.
Right.
He is built to anchor against the run, to take on double teams, and to push the pocket linearly.
Which is a highly valuable skill set in early down situations.
Valuable inside, yes, but when you force a 290-pound 5-tech to play outside as a true edge rusher, you are fighting physics.
Physics can be out-schemed.
Not easily. To rush the passer from the outside, you have to be able to bend the arc. You have to explode off the line, dip your inside shoulder almost to the turf to get under the offensive tackle's hands, and turn a tight corner toward the quarterback at high speed.
And he's not a speed rusher. We know that.
Ingram Dawkins is tight-hipped. He physically cannot execute that ankle flexion and shoulder dip against smaller, faster offensive tackles in space. The data proves it unequivocally.
Let's hear the data.
His pass rush win rate inside last year was 17.6%, but when you move him to the edge, that win rate plummets to 8.0%.
Which is exactly why Flores doesn't just leave him on an island to speed rush. I think you are severely underestimating Brian Flores here.
I'm looking at his roster limitations.
We need to apply some intellectual charity to Flores' defensive genius. He doesn't just run a static system where he demands a 290-pound man to bend the edge like Von Miller. He thrives on adapting his scheme to his available personnel.
Adapting the personnel still requires base-level physical traits, though. You can't scheme away a lack of hip flexibility when an offensive tackle is kicking out on you.
But you can scheme the angle of attack.
How so?
Ingram Dawkins has distinct physical traits. He is a tremendous linear athlete with exceptional length. So Flores isn't asking him to run the arc. He is utilizing him as a highly effective slanter to defeat zone blocking schemes.
Slanting inside.
Right. By having Ingram Dawkins crash violently into the B-gap, the space between the guard and the tackle, he occupies two blockers. Flores uses him to set a heavy edge on early downs and then manufactures the actual quarterback pressure through sophisticated linebacker blitzes right behind him.
But manufacturing pressure through heavy blitzing leaves your secondary on an island. It forces your cornerbacks to play zero coverage with no safety help.
It does, but Flores has proven he can live in that chaotic environment. The defensive backs in this system are specifically drilled to survive that zero coverage stress.
They're drilled for it, but it's dangerous.
My overarching point is this. You shouldn't trade a known, elite, mathematically proven commodity like Jordan Addison to fix a rotational depth issue that an elite defensive coordinator can scheme his way around.
A rotational depth issue? It's deeper than that.
But a defensive coordinator can manufacture a pass rush through alignment and blitzing. An offensive coordinator absolutely cannot manufacture the sheer game-breaking speed and separation of a second WR1. You either have it or you don't.
I disagree entirely that you can just scheme around a lack of organic edge rushers, especially when it matters most. Look at the mechanics of late-season football.
What about them?
Defensive coordinators can manufacture pressure through exotic blitzes in October, yes. But in December and January, in the playoffs, the game fundamentally changes. The game slows down.
The intensity goes up.
Exactly. Opposing offensive lines and elite quarterbacks, your Patrick Mahomes, your Josh Allens, they have seen every blitz package on tape. They dial into your zero coverage tells, they check into max protect, and they burn you.
Which is exactly why you need an offense that can score 35 points in a playoff game.
But you won't even get the ball back if you can't get off the field on third down. In the playoffs, you need players who can simply win a one-on-one rep on the outside without relying on a blitz to manufacture the pressure.
You can't have elite players at every position.
No, but a 290-pound 5-tech slanting into the B-gap is not going to get home against elite quarterbacks in a crucial 2-minute drill. And God forbid Dallas Turner or Andrew Van Ginkel suffer even a minor injury.
Injuries happen to every team.
Yes, but this entire defensive structure is a house of cards. You are one rolled ankle away from having a defense that mathematically cannot pressure the quarterback.
Every team in the NFL is one rolled ankle away from a crisis. That is the nature of a hard-capped league. You can't mitigate all risk.
Yes, but smart general managers insulate against that crisis by maximizing value. That is why you trade Jordan Addison.
I just don't see the value in giving up a sure thing.
The trade value for a player like Addison is at an absolute premium right now.
By trading him to a desperate contender, you aren't just getting a single mid-round pick. You're hoping for a haul. You are commanding a package that fundamentally alters your draft board. You acquire premium capital to draft a true bend-the-edge pass rusher, and simultaneously, you clear that $104.8 million in future cap space.
To spend on what?
That allows Nolan Teasley to extend his own homegrown defensive talent down the line. It is about sustainable team building rather than putting all your financial chips on the perimeter.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because it assumes that draft picks directly translate to production. We all know the hit rate on first-round draft picks is roughly 50%.
It's better than 0%.
But draft capital is essentially a highly valued lottery ticket. You were suggesting the Vikings trade a proven commodity, a player who already knows O'Connell's complex system, who has immediate chemistry with the receivers room, who demands double teams and creates that geometric stress we talked about?
Yes.
You want to trade all of that for the mere chance to draft a good edge rusher.
It's not just a lottery ticket if your scouting department is aligned with your coaching staff. And it's not just about the draft pick, it's about structural sanity.
Sanity?
Committing over $100 million to a second wide receiver while your defensive coordinator is forced to play a tight-hipped, linear 5-tech out on the edge is roster malpractice.
Well, let's summarize where we've arrived, because I think the contrast in our philosophies on how to build a championship roster is incredibly clear.
I agree. It's very clear.
I firmly maintain that consolidating your elite offensive talent is the most reliable blueprint for success for the Minnesota Vikings. By securing Jordan Addison alongside Justin Jefferson, you are building an impenetrable, cognitively friendly infrastructure.
At the expense of the defense.
But it is the only way to ensure a veteran quarterback like Kyler Murray can operate efficiently, resetting his internal clock and processing the field without hesitation. In an offensively driven league, keeping the engine of your high-performance sports car fully upgraded is the only way to dictate terms to the opposition and outpace the competition.
And I maintain that true, sustainable success comes from structural balance across the entire roster. New GM Nolan Teasley has to view the whole board, not just the offensive stat sheet.
The board is connected, certainly.
Exactly. Acquiring premium trade capital for a player like Addison, who would be a WR1 for a dozen other franchises, allows the Vikings to fix severe depth issues on the edge. It balances the salary cap, provides Brian Flores with the organic pass rushers he desperately needs for playoff football.
Assuming the picks hit.
Right, assuming they hit. But it builds a defense that won't shatter the moment a starting linebacker blitz is picked up or an edge rusher rolls an ankle.
Despite our stark disagreement on the methodology, I think we have found some crucial areas of convergence today.
We definitely have.
We both clearly recognize that Jordan Addison is a premier talent in the National Football League, a player whose value is recognized universally by opposing defenses, which is precisely why this debate exists.
Absolutely. There is no denying his talent or his market value. We are also in total agreement that Brian Flores is operating under immense pressure on the defensive side.
Oh, without a doubt.
He is currently having to rely heavily on schematic creativity, slanting heavy linemen, utilizing zero-coverage blitzes, and masking personnel adaptations just to hide the very real roster limitations he was handed this season.
Exploring this material really highlights the complex, deeply interconnected nature of NFL team building.
It's a spiderweb.
It really is. It's fascinating to realize that a financial decision regarding a wide receiver's contract in the front office, how Rob Brzezinski structures a signing bonus, inherently dictates the operational ceiling of a defensive lineman on a Sunday.
It does.
It simultaneously determines the success rate of a veteran quarterback trying to revive his career through cognitive offloading. Everything is connected.
It is the ultimate domino effect in professional sports. Every dollar spent on one side of the ball forces a very real physical compromise on the other. Observing exactly how Nolan Teasley resolves this specific puzzle will be a fascinating case study in modern roster management.
Indeed it will. As always, there is no single definitive answer to these complex engineering problems. Reasonable, highly knowledgeable experts can view this roster puzzle from completely different, yet equally valid perspectives.
That's the beauty of it.
We leave it to you to form your own conclusion. When the structural integrity of your franchise is on the line, do you reinforce the penthouse or do you fix the foundation? Thank you for joining us.